Okay. Shalom Abracha L'Kulam, Shabbat Tov. We are starting, I think, to me at least, this was a very interesting, as also very excited, a very big principle of halacha, of chiyuv tefillah. The obligation of tefillah. We all know we daven 3 times a day, but what is the actual obligation in prayer? We're going to be on page 65 in the Tzurba Rabbanon, English edition, volume 11. And we're going to start off. And when we say prayer, we usually mean Shmona Esrei. That was the establishment, the Anshe Knesset Hagdol. They put together Shmona Esrei, and they put it in a way we're going to see that was meant to encompass the prayer that we need to say, and the words that we need to say in order to really reach the goal of what we're trying to do. So let's start off with Masechet Ta'anit, Titania, Lahava et Hashem Elokeichem ulavdo b'chol levavchem. Ezehi avodah shehu b'lev. It says ulavdo b'chol levavchem that you should serve Hashem with all of your heart. What service is considered service of the heart? They said that this is tefillah. Prayer is the service of the heart. I remember one telling from Rav Moshe Meir Weisshlita, he said that means when you finish prayer, you should be sweating, like an exercise, a workout. Avodah. When you work out, you sweat afterwards. So when you finish prayer, you should be exhausted from prayer. Depends who. Why? What does it depend?
Some people don't work hard.
Oh, some people don't work out. Some people have an easy job. But it's supposed to be an avodah of a leiv, of a heart. It's supposed to be emotional. This is tefillah. So now, the question is, based on this braita, what is tefillah? Is it deoraita or derabanan? And you have to know, because it wouldn't make differences, la halacha, what it is, right? Usually it's safek derabanan lekula, safek deoraita lechumra. So what is prayer? So we have the Rambam, Maimonides, and he brings it down to mitzvah, I say number 5. A mitzvah chemishit hishit tzivanu lo'avdo, and it says it many times. In Mishpatim it says, and it says in Re'ev, Ota ta'avdu, and in Eschanan it says, Ota ta'avod, and again it brings in Parshas Eikev, Ulavdo, and he says, V'alf b'shizeh hatzivoy, hugam kain min hatzuvayim hakodolim, imo shivanu b'shar sharivi'i, it includes a specific activity to pray. So from the Rambam mitzvah hey, he brings here that it is a mitzvah deoraita, a Torah obligation to pray. That's our first rishon we're going to deal with, and now we're going to deal with the famous Ramban, who is of the other opinion. And the Rambam says, I don't agree with this. We already learned that tefillah is rabbinical. Like we learned in the 3rd parak of Brachot. Linyan Baal Keri, a person who's a Baal Keri, Shekari Kriyat Shema, Muvarach Alamaz, and the person who is Tama with Tumas Keri, he says Kriyat Shema, he says Birkat Hamazon, and he doesn't pray. And the reason the Gemara gives why he would say Kriyat Shema and say Birkat Hamazon. Ela Kriyat Shema Birkat Hamazon deoraita. Tefillah derabbanan. The Gemara says straight up that tefillah is rabbinical. So so the Ramban has a very good proof, right? However, the Ramban is going to agree on one point when tefillah is considered deoraita. So far the Ramban Nachmanides holds that tefillah is derabanan, but he's going to bring as follows in the Sifri, where it says ulavdo in Parshas Eikev zeh hatamud davar acher zut tefillah asmachtahi, that when it says ulavdo, it's an asmachta to tefillah. It's a leaning on the word in the Torah ulavdo that the rabbis leaned on it to make the mitzvah of prayer. Olomer shemiklal ha'avodah shenimod Torah shenitpalu elav be'et hatzarot. Enenu v'libenu elav levado ke'enei avadim eliyad adonehim. וזה כעניין שכוסף וכיתבו מלחמה בארצכם על הצער הצער אתכם והראותם וחצות ונזכרתם לפני השם אלוקיכם היא מצווה על כל צרה וצרה So the Ramban, Nachmanides says, usually prayer is Dirabanan, but when you're in the Etzara, when you're in a time of trouble, then to turn to Hashem and pray is the Oraita. That's his one time when prayer would be the Oraita. Now, the Tzurba says, what's Ibid? Ibid means where they mentioned earlier. Where do you see Ibid? Before. Where are you looking?
First straight line.
Ibid. So it means in the same Sagot HaRamban, whatever source they brought before. Okay. Now, even though the Rambam says that Tefillah is the Oraita, right? Maimonides says Tefillah is the Oraita. He will agree to you that the Tefillat Shmona Esrei was put together by the Rabbanan, right? We have a Masechet Berachot. Amar Rav Shimon bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan Michti. Now let's see. Anshe Knesset Gadol Tiknu Lehem Yisrael Berachot Utfilot Kedushot V'Havdalot. Anshe Knesset Gadol, they established for us the blessings that we say. Shakol Nidvar, all the Berachot, Tefilot, all the prayers, including Mincha, Musaf, everything. Kiddushat, the Kiddush that you make Yom Tov and Shabbat, the Havdalot, and the Havdalot that we make. All that was established by the Anshe Knesset HaGadola. The Tanya, as we have another Braita in Masechet Megillah, that tells about Shimon HaPakuli. Hasdir Shmona Esrei Berachot Lifnei Rabbi Gamliel. That he came ahead in front of Rabbi Gamliel and he was Mesader, the Berachot, Al Seder B'Yavne. In Yavne, he put the Seder of Berachot together. What did he put together? If already Anshe Knesset HaGadol, so it says again that Anshe Knesset put the Shmona Esrei together, and then it says that this Rabbi Shimon HaPakuli came and put it together. So what is he putting together? And if the already Anshe Knesset put it together, so he says that they forgot it and he brought it back. This is if you look at note 4. It says here the Rabbeinu Chananel and the Meiri do not mention anything about Shimon HaPakuli in their version of the Gemara. The Rabbeinu Chananel did not have it in his Gemara, and the Meiri didn't have it in his Gemara, and they say that this never really happened. That Shimon HaPakuli didn't happen because it's impossible for everyone who actually has already made prayer. How did everyone forget it? And he came and did it. What he brought back. If you're davening every single day, how did you forget it? Right? And they brought it back. So so he brings here Shita Mekubetz. This suggests that even Shimon Pekali did arrange, even if Shimon Pekali did arrange the Berachot, again, and according to the different text, he only rearranged the order of the Berachot. But the people never forgot the text of Berachot. So some of the middle Berachot, I would assume, were the Berachot that were in a different order. People had, and he came and he put it in a better seder. Right? Similarly, we can make an Abdullah in the separation, but similarly, as when the Arizah would come out and rearrange certain words in the Tefillah that were accepted by the Sfaradim, that we accepted the changes in some of the words, especially Kiddush Friday night, right? You ever go to the Ashkenaz shul, they sing it very nice. The Kiddush, they have more words in their Kiddush than ours, right? And we have those same words in the in Yom Tov Kiddush. We put them back in. And towards the end, they sing it very nicely in their shuls, national shuls. We took, if you give me the siddur, I'll show it to you. The words I forgot right now. But we took it out. The reason we took it out because he wanted to make the count words, the count of the words equal to a certain gematria, to something about Shabbat. Right now, I don't remember the exact things. No, give me Ashkenaz shul. I'll show you which words that they say extra. So similar to that, so that's what the Shita Mekubetzis wants to say Shimon HaPakuli did. That he came and he rearranged the seder of the Berachot. So you have Shabbat. So if you go into the Kiddush of Shabbat night, I'll show you. So they come home and they say the Kiddush, and they have what it says. Right? They say, Kivanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodechecha. We take that whole thing out, because we want to make a gematria with the words of the beracha based on the Arizal. So we don't say those words. We only say that on Yom Tovim, when we're not trying to make a gematria of the words, the collection of the words. No, take a look inside. We say Kiddush every Friday night.
Kiddush.
Kiddush. I'm talking about Kiddush. We dafka take it out because we're trying to make a certain calculation. That reason, not we. The reason is a big source. Trying to make a calculation, so we don't say that. See? We say Zeichel Yetziat Mitzrayim, and we go straight to Shabbat Kochecha B'Hava Ratzoni Chaltanu, and they say Kivanu B'Chartu Tol Kiddush Mikol Ha'amim. That's the actual original version of Kiddush. The Rizal came later on, and he took it out. And he says because and this doesn't say it, but he wanted to make a certain gematria of words that equals something or another, and that's why we don't say it. So based on my understanding of that, that's the way Shita Mekubetis, I think, understands what Shimon HaPakuli did was he came and he reset the order of those middle berachot. Okay, so far what do we have? We have Rambam Deoraita Tifila. Ramban Tefillah is derabanan, except when you're in etzara, when you're in a troubled time. We have the Anshe Knesset Agdola put it together. Shimon HaPakuli either reminded the people what it was, or he rearranged it towards a better seder. Now, here is the Rambam Hilchot Tefillah. He's going to say that what the Anshe Knesset did, why they made their Shmona Esrei. His Kimush Agali Yisrael b'Meinu Nebuchadnezzar Harasha Nitaravu b'Paras b'Yavan b'Shar Ha'umot b'Noldu lehem banim b'Artzot HaGoyim b'Otam habanim nitbalbelu sefatam. When the Jews got exiled, they went into exile and they went into different countries, and the Jews had children, and the children didn't speak so well anymore Hebrew. They got mixed up, all the languages, like we speak today. I'm speaking English, and half Hebrew, half Yiddish, half Spanish, half Russian, everything's all mixed up. Right? They mixed everything up. And people didn't know how to speak Hebrew correctly. He wouldn't be able to daven nicely without mixing it with other languages. So because of this issue, the Rambam says, what did they do? There he went and he made Shmona Esrei based on the Seder. Shlosha Rishonot, Shevach LaHashem, Shlosha Achanot Hodaya. The first three Shevach, praise to Hashem. Last three, thanks to Hashem. The Emtziot, in the middle one, Yesh Behen, Sheilot, Kol HaDevarim, Shehen Kemo, Avot L'chol Chavtzei Ish Ve'ish, L'tzarchei Tzibur Kulan. And the middle Barachot were like primary categories of stuff that a person needs. The Avot, right? Avot and Toldot, that a person needs. Kadesh Sheh, Aruchot, Befi Kol. It should be in everyone's mouth. V'ilmu Otan, they would learn them. V'tiyet Tfilat, Elu Hagalim, Tfilat Shlema, Ketfilat, V'alei Lashon HaTzacham. V'npnei Inyan Zeh, Tiknu Kol Barachot, V'tifilot, so he says over here, the whole reason why the Anshe Knesset Agdola put tefillah in words, in specific words, is because people didn't know how to daven anymore in one lashon. It seems to be saying lashon kodesh, right? People couldn't say it in lashon kodesh anymore. That's why, even though I think from this Rambam we see that reason why we say you can daven in any language, right? But it's always better to daven in Hebrew. There's a reason, because Anshe Knesset Agdola put in the Hebrew words a power. There's a power that you can't get in English or in Russian or in anything else. You can't pray in Hebrew, fine, we say you can read it. That's why what Rabbi Bechor Baruch did with the transliteration of the Russian Siddur, it's an amazing thing, because now a person can read Russian letters and read Hebrew and get that extra source of Kiddusha while reading it as well. The Nefesh HaChaim, Chaim Volozhin, says as well that there's a reason and they put it with nevuah, they put it with kiddusha, ruach hakodesh. And they therefore use specifically these words. So they basically saw what words were going to have the most effect. Okay, that's why they put the tefillah the way it is. That's why it's very important to make sure we're reading tefillah correctly. Now, although it is true that the first siddur would be the first siddur, historical siddur, would be what they call the siddur geonim, would be the first siddur that would be when they actually wrote it as a book, as a siddur. Ashkenaz siddur is probably the most closest today to what the Gaonim siddur would have been. Okay, not to say it's exact copy of it, but it would have been more closer. Sephardic siddur that we have is changed slightly by the Arizal and the other Kabbalists of Tzvat and others, that they saw Kabbalistically which words would fit better, and also the Lashon, the way they change it to include all 12 Shvatim and all that. That became the Sephardic Nusach. Sfard, historic, and it's not the way things happen. Nusach Sfard was the Baal Shem Tov's Nusach, which was basically taking the Sephardic Nusach, which the Arizal put together, and then taking it and again slightly adapting it and changing it for Ashkenazim, and that became Nusach Sfard. Okay. The Arizal. And then you have Chabad, which came much later, right? And they have a siddur and they say Nusach Ari. Really, it's not Nusach Hari, because the Nusach Arizal is the Sephardic Nusach. That's Nusach Hari. That's what we have. Why they call them Nusach Arizal? I guess because they're more towards Arizal than Sfard. Because Baal Shem Tov didn't use, because they all see this Lubavitch is more closer to Nusach Sfaradim than Sfard itself is. But even there, they also do things that we don't do. So there's Siddur has been adapted and changed as the generations go on. But of course, Anshe Gedol's main barachot, everything is still there. Just a word here too is in order to put it in a way that fits better. I mean, the Vilna Gaon also has the Nusach Ashkenaz. There's actually a siddur, just the Siddur Harav or the Vilna Gaon, which is a little different than the regular Nusach Ashkenaz. One of the difference would be, in a lot of Nusach Ashkenaz, the girls would say, they all say Shlo Asani Yavid, right? But we're saying Shlo Asani Shivcha, which makes more sense. Vilna Gaon in his siddur would say Shlo Asani Shivcha. Interesting, because I tell my daughters at home they should say Shlo Asani Shivcha, and I bought them Sephardic term that say that. And then when Rabbi Kanevsky was nifter, they put out a video of his wife saying the berachot to him. I don't know if you saw that. In there, she says Shlo Asani Shivcha. So, and the Morris in her class, when they saw it, they got, why is she Shlo Asani Shivcha? And then they looked into it, and they Shlo Asani Yavid, they say, as if they were a boy, they say. Can I say that? Yeah. Doesn't make sense, but that's what they say. Yeah, for girls, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's just a little bit of background on Siddurim in general. Now he wants to bring here in Tzurba, he wants to bring the source for tefillot that we have 3 times a day, and he brings Masechta Berachot Avram Tikkun Tefillah Shachar Shneimar. We're saying Avram was the one who made Shacharit because it says V'yishkom Avraham Baboker El Hamakom Asher Amad Sham. He stood up in that place that he always would stand, and V'ein Amida El Tefillah. When it says Amida, it means Tefillah. Shneimar V'yamod Pinchas V'yipalel. Pinchas stood up and prayed. So you see that standing is prayer. So you mean Avraham prayed Shacharit. Yitzchak Tikkun Tefillat Mincha. Shneimar V'yitzei Yitzchak Lesuach Basadeh Lefnot Erev Ve'en Sicha El Tefillah. And Sicha, talking, is nothing but Tefillah. Shneimar Tefillah Leoni Ki Yatov Nifnei Hashem Yishpoch Sicho. And he would pour out his words in front of Hashem. Yaakov Tikkun Tefillat Arevit. Shneimar V'yifka B'makom V'yalan Sham. Ve'en Pigia El Tefillah. Shneimar V'ata Al Titpalel Be'ad Ha'am Hazeh V'al Tisa Ba'adam Rina Tefillah V'al Tifka Bi. So we see the word Tifka means prayer, and Yaakov prayed Aravit. And not to make any jokes, but Agav, they say, why was Yaakov the one who was Tefillat Aravit? You have 12 children at home, you don't want to be home to put them to sleep, so he made Aravit to come out. This is just a I don't think it's true, but or maybe he davened so they would fall asleep. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the Malach HaGoyel Oti. Yeah, that was the angel to him, right? It's his bracha to the children, right? Kehemshach, Pnei Halacha says, Kehemshach leminhag avot, following the custom of our fathers, Tiknu Anshe Knesset Hagadola et Shlosha Tefillot. In order, because of the avot, the way they prayed, Anshe Knesset Hagadola put 3 tefillot. So the 3 tefillot are derabanan. The 3, that is derabanan. Shacharim Hava Aravit. They took them connected korbanot tzibur, and they also are attacking them comparable to the korbanot. Because they come in the place of korbanot. So you have the korban in the morning, korban in the afternoon, which would be mincha, and then at night that they would burn up anything that was left over from the day, and that is your 3 tefillot. So this is the sources of tefillot. So we came out the famous machlokes of the Rishonim, Rambam and the Ramban. Rambam says it is Doraita. At all times is Doraita. The Ramban says is Derabanan except for a difficult time, Etzara, and otherwise it's Derabanan. And we know it's established by the Anshe Knesset Hagadola, and they put power into the words, and it's comparable to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and to the Korbanot. This is the chiyuv of the tefillah. Now comes the most interesting of parts of tonight, I think, is the chiyuv of tefillah for nashim, for ladies, right? Because now this would depend on your machloket, d'oraita d'rabanan, and exactly how much is encapsulated in that. What do I mean by that? We're going to see. If you hold it's derabanan, right? The tefillah is derabanan. Women have a mitzvah of tefillah also. We're going to see the Gemara says they have to daven also. If you say tefillah is derabanan, and the Rabbanan set up the tefillah, shachar mincha aravit, that's what they did, then technically women would be responsible for shacharit and mincha. Aravit is reshut, so he would say no. According to the Ramban, that would be the law for the woman. According to the Rambam, was just Doraita. Then later the rabbis came and made Shemona Esrei, Shachar Mincha Aravit. So prayer to him is just saying a thank you to Hashem. You're right. So let's see. Let's start off. First, he brings a Mishnah and Berachot. Nashim, Ba'avadim, B'ktanim, B'turim, Kriyat Shema, Umina Tefillin. They don't have to say Shema. They have to put on Tefillin because they're all Mitzvah Shema and Groma, right? V'chayevin b'tfilah, but they're responsible for Tefillah, Umezuzah, U'Birkat HaMazon. So the Mishnah and Berachot says women have to daven. So off the bat, women have to daven. According to Rashi, he says over here in the little brownish box, women are exempt for Kriya and Shema because mitzvah Shema and Grama. It's a time-bound mitzvah, and women are free from time-bound mitzvah because they don't have their own time. We're going to see that. Okay. Now, tefillah, on the other hand, wouldn't tefillah also be a time-bound mitzvah? Shacharit, mincha, aravit, it's the time for everything. So the Gemara says, "V'chayivim tefillah." Why are they chayiv tefillah? The rachamei ninhu, because they also need rachmanut. Why are we davening? That Hashem we should talk asking Hashem to give us stuff, right, to help us out. So they also need rachmanut. They also need mercy. It says erev. You would think mitzvah taseh man grama don't mean that it's a mitzvah man grama if it's daven in the morning, night, and evening. Mash Milan, no, that the nashim are hayav in tefillah because they also need rachmanut. Hayavim tefillah. Rashi says it's tefillah rachamehi umidirabanan he, and it's the rabbanan. Tiknua apla nashim v'lechnoch ketanim. So Rashi says they need to daven because they need rachmanut, right? They need rachmanut, and it's the rabbanan, the tefillah.
Need to daven.
Davening is the rabbanan, and they need to daven because they need rachmanut, and that's why the rabbanan obligated them. So the obligation for women to daven, according to Rashi, is rabbinic because they need Rahmanu. They need mercy from Hashem. Right? If you read the box over there, it says it would seem the Russian is telling more here as follows. Women were obligated in tefillah because by Chazal, because they too need mercy. All the women have argued they should be exempt. Nevertheless, Mishnah teaches that they are in fact obligated. And now we're going to come to the Rif and the Rambam. The Rif and the Rambam do not learn this way. We're in source 14, page 71. Kriyat Shema v'tefillin. Women are exempt in Kriyat Shema and tefillin. The havile mitzvat azeh shezman grama. Chol mitzvah shezman grama nashim peturot. Any mitzvah that's time bound, women are free from. Tefillah umezuzah ubirkat hamazon. The havile mitzvah shezman grama v'chol mitzvah shezman grama. Shelo hazman grama nashim hayirot. The Havid Le Mitzvah says Shelo hazman grama. He says that tefillah, mezuzah, becoming zon are not mitzvahs man grama. Why does the Rif say that? Because if tefillah is the oraita, there's no set time to pray. That the Rabbanan came and made times to pray. The oraita obligation is to pray, but there's no set time to pray. And if that's the case, then women have to pray because it's the oraita shelo hazman grama. Let's look at the Rambam. Mitzvah said
obligation because this is as if Shelo hazman grama.
According to the Rambam, because Shelo hazman grama.
What's the definition? Because they're always obligated.
Because there's an obligation to pray.
I mean,
There's an obligation to pray with no time when you have to pray. Right. According to the Rambam.
Because there's always an obligation.
There's a mitzvah d'oraita to pray. No time when you have to pray. You have to pray.
Is it also according to the Ramban only based on that? And therefore they're also obligated?
When it's
We're
a
not getting
tzara.
into that.
We're not getting into that, but you're getting to a very nice point that he brings towards the end. He brings it, I forgot from whom he brought it from. I think he brought it from Rav Soloveitchik. The Rav, he brought it from the Rav Soloveitchik. Rav Soloveitchik wants to say that the Rambam holds of the Ramban, that when it's an etzara, you have to pray d'oraita, but the Rambam holds every minute is an etzara. Therefore, you have to pray. That's why it's always d'oraita. That's what Soloveitchik wants to say. So you're
even women are doing
right. But the way the Rambam Pashat is learning that it's d'oraita. Let's look at the Rambam. Mitzvah say litpaleh b'chol yom. Shneimar v'avatam Hashem lekechem mipi hashmua amru sha'avodah zohi tefillah. We know avodah is a tefillah. V'nemru ovdu b'chol vavchem amru chachamim ezu avodah shebelev. What's the work of the heart? Zu tefillah. Ve'en minyan hatefalot min haTorah. There is no number of count for tefillah. Below mishneh tefillah hazot min haTorah. Ve'en l'tefillah zman kevua min haTorah. There is no time for it. There's no text for it, and there is no set time for it. The Rambam says the oraita obligation doesn't have none of those. Lefikach, noshim, ba'abodim, chayevim b'tfilah, lefi shehi mitzvah aseh, shelo hazman grama. It's not a time-bound mitzvah. Tefillah is not about time-bound mitzvah. Elachir mitzvah zu kachu, she'adam mitchanen mitpalel b'chol yom, u'magid shiv shav choy shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'achar kach shoyel tzarachav shu tzarich lehein, bevakasha, v'china, v'achar kach noitin shevach v'odel Hashem, al tova sheshpir loy, kol echad ve'echad, v'ti koichai.
Why we have to have tachlis up until 10 to 30 is man tefillah.
That's all the Rambam. According to the Rambam, all your zmanik tefillah is the Rambam. All.
Can I daven man tefillah? Can I daven shachrit at 11 o'clock?
After zman tefillah? No, you can't. Because the Rabbanon put in the mitzvah of the Araita, they put their gedarm there. How you have to daven. To come how you have to daven.
But if a person daven at 11 o'clock,
he didn't daven shachrit. If it's after the time, he can't daven shachrit after zman tefillah.
But he did.
It's not. It's tefillah. That's why a person can daven all day. You can make tashlumim. You can make these other things. You make an adava. Why you can do this? Because you can pray all day. But it's not shachrit after that. The Rabbanan made shachrit mincha out of it. You have to do that. But he's saying outside the noshim, well, them, they don't have a mitzvah to do the rabbinic part of the tefillah. Their mitzvah is to daven once a day, anytime during the day. right? And now because you can't eat before you daven, that's why we said last week noshim should really daven before they eat in the morning. Small tefillah. They say berachot, already that should be enough. Berachot b'kat Torah, they daven. That's considered tefillah. And he says so much so that he can just say their own words for it. So according to the Rambam and the Rif, the mitzvah of tefillah, the oraita mitzvah of the tefillah, is not based on time. Therefore, women are obligated for it. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch in notes in source 16, page 72, Nashim v'avadim, she'af apishe petorim mikriyat shema chayivim mitfilah, mipnei shehi mitzvat, aseh lo hazman grama. Women are obligated in tefillah. It's important to let them know this. A lot of women don't know this. They don't think they have to daven. They are obligated to daven once a day, according to the Shulchan Aruch, according to the Rambam, according to the Rif.
Because you said
They have to daven once a day.
because of Shachan,
That would be enough for them to eat already.
but not dafka tefillah akat.
They can choose. If they wanted to pray Tefillah Shacharit, they can do it.
Right. I'm saying it's enough also to do.
Yeah, enough just to say Barachot. Yes, it's enough to say Barachot. It's enough to even just say, Hashem, thank you so much for everything you do for me. I love you so much. Please help me what I need with. Thank you very much. That's it. That's already Yotzeh. That's already Yotzeh Tefillah for a woman. That's already enough. Okay, fine. Now he brings the Magen Avraham here. And he writes over here, Ken Katav Harambam. It's very late. The Tefillah Mitzvah Aseder right to he. It says that Tefillah is the oraita because it says L'Avdu B'chol Avchem. Ach Midoraita Dai Bepam Echad Beyom of Chol Nusach Sheyirtza. Anything that the person wants to say, any thank you to Hashem, that would be already considered his obligation for tefillah, according to the Rambam. Anyways, the oraita obligation. We're not talking about, yes, now we're talking, for us, we have the rabbinic obligation. We're talking on a oraita level. It would be enough to just say, thank you, Hashem, for everything. Please help me out. Thank you. Mishum de Omrim, Miyad Bevoker Samach Lenatila Eza Bakasha, Umudaraita Daibas, that's enough. After Shagam Chacham Lachayavim Beyoter for the woman. Therefore, a woman to say brachot, and to say brachot, that's already considered the tefillah. They can eat, it's not considered eating on their blood. All of that is already done in their brachot that they say. This is the Magen Avram's explanation. This is brought by the Rif, the Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, that this is the woman's obligation is just to say any version of a thank you and a bakasha to Hashem, the tefillah, that would be enough. However, the Mishnah Brura says, Kol zeh l'dat Rambam, shrag zmanei tefillah hem divrei soifrim, aval ikar mitzvah tefillah hi min ha-Torah. This is all according to the Rambam, who holds that tefillah is the oraita, and the zmanim of tefillah is the rabbanon. Chasava Magen Avram shall be svar zeh nohagu roiv anoshim she'ein mitpalalim yudchet. They don't pray Shemona Esrei b'tfidut usually shachar ve'erev. Lefi she'omrot miyad b'boiker samech lenatila eza bakasha u'min ha'Torah yotzeit bazeh ve'afshir she'af chacham melochiv yoter. So the Mishnah Berurah says this that the Shulchan Aruch said. The Magen Avram says this is all based in the Rambam. Aval dat haRamban. But according to the Ramban, Nachmanides, she'ikar mitzvah tefillah hi midivrei sofrim, that the whole mitzvah of davening is not a doraita mitzvah. When it says ulu avdo, that's an asmachta. We're leaning on that. But rather, tefillah is actually older rabbanan. Shehem anshe knesses hagedol shetiknu yudches brachos al seder leitpalo oton shachoytu mincha chova v'arvit reshut. And they made the mincha and shachar, you have to pray, and Arabit was a reshut when they originally made it. And even though it's a mitzvah aseh, and even though it's a mitzvah aseh that's based on time, because the Rabbanan said you have to daven shachar, that shachar, mincha, Arabit, Arabit, right? Mikol mitzvahs, and usually noshim are potter. Mikol mitzvahs aseh shazman grama. even if they were made by the Rabbanon, like Kiddush Shalavana, women don't have to say. But yet the Rabbanon said that the women are obligated in Shacharit and Mincha every single day. According to the Ramban, they have to daven every single day Shacharit and Mincha. Because it's Rachamim and they need Rachamim also. When you daven, asking Hashem to help you. Women also did. V'chein ikar. He came dat roiva poiskim. V'chein hechriya b'sefer shagat aryeh. Al ken yesh lahazil anoshim sheet palalu yutchet. So the Mishnah Berurah says that Ashkenaz women are obligated to pray Shacharit and Mincha every single day. It's the Mishnah Berurah is Ashkenaz. Shulchan Aruch said we don't. Shulchan Aruch said that the Rambam, they just have to say thank you to Hashem in the morning. Brachot, and it's enough already. They don't have to pray anything else. They should also accept Hashem's kingship. The Hainu Shomer al Koponim Shema Yisrael. They should say Shema Yisrael. Kedita b'siman ayin. Vayomer gam came brachot emet v'yatzir kedei smol go tefillah. Moshe katuv magen b'siman ayin. So he says they should say Shema and they should say Shemona Esrei. Women have to daven Shemona Esrei, Shacharit and Mincha, and they should say Shema Shacharit. The chol is in Shacharit and Mincha, and this is woman's obligation in Shacharit and Mincha. Avatfilat Aravit Shehur Reshut. Aravit is optional, right? It was originally made optional. However, now all the Jewish men accepted it as a obligation to pray Aravit. The woman like Kibu Aleim. Beruban Einu Mitzpalel Aravit, and most of them don't pray Aravit. Betfilat Musafin, Tfilat Musaf, Betzlach Kosav de Petoris. The Tzlach says women are potter from Musaf. However, the Magen Avram says women are obligated in Musaf. So right now it comes out, practically speaking, Machlokit Ashkenaz Sfaradim. We have Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah. Shulchan Aruch says women are not obligated in Shacharit and Mincha because the Rambam says all they have to do is say thank you. Done. Over. According to the Mishnah Berurah, we have to learn like the Ramban. The Ashkenazim learn the Ramban. The Ramban says that there is no doraita tefillah. The Rabbanan made the tefillah. They made it at times, and they said that the women are obligated in it too. Therefore, Shacharit and Mincha are obligated on an Ashkenaz woman to say. Now, however, there are many Ashkenaz women today that do not pray Shacharit and Mincha Shmona Esrei. What are they basing it on? So here he brings the Kloisenberger Rebbe, according to the Ramban. I have to say Shacharit and Mincha. Sfaradim we're going to get to. Right now we're looking at Shulchan Aruch. We're going to see all the Tzion and Yalkut Joseph in a few minutes. Now the question is, we see a lot of Ashkenaz women not praying Shacharit and Mincha. So where do they come out from? So he brings here the Divrei Yatziv, which is Rabbi Yekutiel Yehuda Halberstam, the Kloisenberger Rebbe. B'kitzur, he says that we have a halacha that someone who is busy in mitzvot dirabim, if you're doing a mitzvah for the people, for the community, you don't have to stop to pray. Such a halacha. We're going to get to it soon. So he says, based on this, he says not only that, they're not going to be able to concentrate because they're busy with their children's needs and their husband's needs. Halavai, right? So they're supposed to be busy. And he says over here, they're just not able to concentrate correctly. Like a drunk person or someone who's too busy, has too much on his mind. We're going to see later on also, if he's busy with some other mitzvah, he doesn't have to pray if he's busy with another mitzvah. We're going to see that fundraisers for yeshivot, if they're busy fundraising and they don't have time to pray, they don't have to pray. Dr. Joseph brings that like halakha for today. So if someone's busy, yeah. So look in the small box. Look in the orange box. It says as follows: the first explanation of the Divrei Yatziv is that women are exempt tefillah because they're constantly involved in mitzvah, such as taking care of children. And one who's engaged in a mitzvah is busy in a mitzvah is part from another mitzvah. However, he rejects his explanation because the Gemara does not distinguish between women who are in childcare and women who are not. The Gemara should have said, okay, if you're busy with children, you don't have to daven. No, that phone they have to daven. The second explanation is based on the Gemara, which states that a person who is not concentrating and able to focus is exempt from tefillah. Now, today we don't say that because today we say most people are not concentrating anyway. So if you're going to say, oh, I can't concentrate and not daven, then it's like you usually have concentration. That's why we tell a chatan who got married, we tell him you pray right away that first night. Don't say I'm too busy about the mitzvah, I'm not going to be able to concentrate. You never concentrate anyway, we say, so you daven. However, by this reasoning, when women are not taking care of children or involved with other household responsibilities, according to Rabbi Halberstam, the Kaiser Rebbe, they would have to say Shmona Esrei. Shaharit and Mincha for Ashkenazim.
So Chatan prays?
Yes.
Arabic?
Yes. Okay, as long as you daven. So the Vrei Yatziv, basically, the Kaiser Rebbe said that women who are busy with children and family stuff have what to rely on. And we're going to see that he's going to hold that they should do like the Rambam at that time. They should just say thank you, say berachot, and that would be enough. They can rely on the Rambam at that time. But if they're not busy with childcare or household responsibilities, then they need to pray Shaharit Mincha as much as they can. And this is what the Piskei Teshuvot also says. The Piskei Teshuvot says a woman whose time is not her own, cannot free herself, she's busy, is permitted to rely on the Magen Avraham, which means to rely on the Rambam, and to make do with a short daily prayer that includes a bakasha and includes a request as well, and praise for Hashem and thanksgiving. So praise, thanks, and a bakasha. That's what he says. And he says, he should say before she eats. And she should say Kriya Shema, the first pasuk, and Baruch Shem. That's his recommendation. But when she can control her schedule, then she should say Shaharit Mincha. That's what he says here. In a case of need, she can suffice with only Shmona Esrei and recite in the morning Barachot after waking up. If she has 10 minutes, but not 20 minutes, then she doesn't have to say Baruch She'amar and everything else. She can just say Barachot and Shmona Esrei. So that's what the Piskei Teshuvot say for Ashkenazim. So we have here for Ashkenazim, technically all Ashkenaz women should say Shaharit Mincha, Shmona Esrei. But if they can't, because they're busy with children or family, they can hold of the Rambam, the Magen Avraham, and say a small prayer. But if they have some time, they should fill in Shaharit Mincha.
I just met a Sephardi.
One of the more famous sources is the Chafetz Chaim. Even though he said women are obligated to Shaharit Mincha, the Chafetz Chaim, he wrote as follows. He wrote as follows. He says, Imi, he says, my mother, kemat v'lo hitpalalet kol zman shelo yotzenu mitachat yadei v'amr li ki avi petera mizeh mishum shehi oseket b'gidul baneya. See, his mother never davened Shaharit Mincha when she was taking care of children. She said that her husband pattered her because she's busy with children. So here is the Ashkenaz leniency for women, busy with children, busy with family. They do not have to daven the full Shmona Esrei. Now, what about Sfaradim practically speaking today? So we're going to see the Or LeTzion and the Yebia Omer. Or LeTzion is Chacham ben Tzion Abba Shaul Zecher Tzadik Lebracha. Sfaradi Chacham, Sfaradi Posek. What did he say? Page 76. Nashim Hayivot Litpaleh B'chol Yom Tfilat Shaharit B'Tfilat Mincha. According to Chacham ben Tzion Abba Shaul, they have to pray Shaharit and Mincha. V'yom sheyesh bo Tfilat Musaf Hayivot Gam B'Tfilat Musaf. And when there's Musaf, they have to pray Musaf also. B'Tfilat Aravit Eno Hayivim Litpalel. V'kol Mokom Im Yochelet Tov Shitpalena Gam Tfilat Aravit. They don't have to pray out of it, but if they could pray out of it, even better. We call Malcolm, but then he says, Isha, hamitfel beyeladim beoskei bekach kol hayom ve'ein lo panay b'meshech hayom litpalel poter gam in tefillah shehi ke'osik b'tzibor mitzvah pater min mitzvah. But if a woman is busy with children, then she is pater from tefillah.
No washing machine, everything is too busy. Now everything is, they have
So
time.
that
They have to do that.
if they are available, meaning that they're on Instagram instead of doing household chores, then technically they would be obligated to daven, according to the Or L'Tzion. However, let's take a look. Chamuvadia says, "Ikar kedever achronim." That we just mentioned, Shiladat Harif, V'Harambam, Umaran Shulchan Aruch, Dai L'Nashim B'Tfilat Ahat, Shehi Min HaTorah. The woman only have to pray a small little prayer. V'chein Dad Bal HaEshkol V'Rabbi Yeshaya Mitranai V'Harashba. Uchvar Ketavti Kain B'Shal Sechua Yibi Omer Chelik Vav, V'chein Ikar. V'Delo Kim Mechaber Or L'Tzion, and not like the Or L'Tzion. So the Yalkut Yosef, the Chavovadia comes out very strong in his Yebia Omer, saying that Or L'Tzion is wrong, and women are not chayiv in Shacharit and Mincha. All women have to do is to say a praise, a bakasha, and a thank you, and that would be sufficed already with berachot in the morning. That would be enough according to that. Berachot b'kat Torah. If they can say Shema, one pasuk, and say thank you, something that would be better. Now, and now I'm going to read to you not from the Tzurba, I'm going to read to you from the Yalkut Yosef. Okay, the Yalkut Yosef, this is Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, Chamovadia's son. He writes here in Simon 106, he says as follows: Mitzvah asel etpal b'chol yom, ve'en minyan tefillot min Torah. The number of tefillot are not from the Torah. And the time of davening is not from the Torah. Therefore, women have to daven. This is what we know already. Women have to pray just one little tefillah. What's better? That they should pray tefillat shacharit. Once they say Birkat HaShachar, Ubrachot Torah, and Birkat Torah, they say Pasuk Rishon Shel Kriyat Shema. They say one Pasuk of Kriyat Shema to accept Hashem. V'lachar mikayin yitpal tefillat Shmona Esrei. So his recommendation for women: Birkat HaShachar, Shema, Baruch Shem, and then straight into Shmona Esrei. And if they're busy, if they're busy with Tefillat Shacharit, during Tefillat Shacharit, they're busy with the kids, getting them out, and now time of Shacharit passes, then they should pray Mincha, Shmona Esrei Mincha. And if they're busy during Mincha, they should pray Aravit. Shmona Esrei Aravit. So he seems to be saying they should try to pray one Shmona Esrei a day. And if a woman wants to pray 3, she can do that. She could do that. And it's a good thing for them because everybody needs Rachmanut. And this is what the Yalkut Yosef recommends. He recommends one Shmona Esrei per day, but it's not a chiyuv for them to pray Shmona Esrei. It's enough for them just to say thank you, just say berachot, but it's good for them to do that. And he writes over here, Rov Hanashim Ashkenaziot, the Ashkenaz women, mitzpal rak shacharit u'mincha. They pray mirak shacharit u'mincha. They didn't accept upon themselves Aravit. Therefore, because women are chayiv in tefillah, every shul should make a place for women to come, the Ezrat Nashim. Even though they don't count in the tzibur, in the counting, they don't help for a minyan, but yet there is an inyan to pray in a shul, in a minyan, and therefore you should have for them a Ezrat Nashim. About Musaf, he writes over here that Nashim Peturot Mitzvot Musafin. They do not have to daven Musaf on Rosh Chodesh, Shabbat, or Yom Tov, because Musaf is not Rachamim. You're not asking for mercy by Musaf. You're doing the Korban. El Bab B'makom Korban Musaf. You usually have a Korban Musaf, an extra Korban. That's what Musaf is. It's like a mitzvah that's time bound, and women are pater. Therefore, they should listen to the Shliach Tzibur. But if they pray Musaf, don't stop them. They have what to rely on. However, Musaf Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is Rachamim. Musaf Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you're asking Hashem to be Rachmanut on us. Therefore, they should daven Musaf Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and they should daven Ne'ilah Yom Kippur, because it's all about mercy at that time. So according to the Yalkut Yosef, the women are not supposed to be praying Musaf. What's interesting, happens a lot of times, women come to shul late on Shabbat. They don't daven Shacharit, they daven Musaf, because the shul's up to Musaf. But really, it's still time to pray Shacharit. It's not over the Zman Tfilat of Shacharit yet. So really, technically speaking, women should be praying Shacharit at that time and not Musaf, because Musaf, they don't have an obligation to pray Musaf. In fact, some say not to pray Musaf. If they did, we don't stop them. But Shacharit, they do have more of an obligation to pray Shacharit. Therefore, if a woman comes late to Shul and Shabbat and she wants to pray something, if still it's man Tfilat Shacharit, it's not the time of Shacharit didn't pass yet, they should definitely pray Shacharit and not Musaf. So this is the chayav, this is the obligation for women. So what do we come out with at the end? For us who follow Yalkut Yosef, our women need to daven something a day, as much as they can. If they could try to do one Shemona Esrei a day, that would be better. But Berachot and Shema, they should definitely do before they start to eat in the morning. So that's what our recommendation, based on what we learned, the halachot from. Okay, let's see if we can finish up the last section over here. The last section over here, when you're exempt, when you don't have to daven, when you're patur from davening. Chatan patur mekriyat Shema leila rishona. Chatan is patur. Ve'ad motzei Shabbat. Im lo asa ma'aseh. They usually got married Wednesday, and if he didn't consummate the marriage by motzei Shabbat, he doesn't have to daven up until then. Seems to be, yeah, right? Taner Rabbanon b'shavtecha b'beitecha prat lo oskei b'mitzvah. It's coming to exclude one who's engaged in a mitzvah. When you're walking and doing your stuff, your own stuff, then you do the mitzvah of davening. But when you're busy with another mitzvah, you don't do it. The chol heicha detar hachi nami dipater, and anyone who's busy doesn't have to daven. So he says, for example, one whose ship sank at sea, who is preoccupied, should also be exempt. So I'm preoccupied. The chatan is preoccupied. He's worried about his marriage. He's getting married. He's worried about being with his wife. So if someone lost his ship in the sea, oh, he's preoccupied. So maybe he doesn't have to daven either. He's worried about his money. And if you say that indeed that's true, but didn't we say a person who's a mourner, someone who lost somebody, has to daven? He just can't put on tefillin, right? Because tefillin is splendor. So the Gemara says no. It's when he's the mitzvah. It's when he's busy with the mitzvah. Hatan's busy with the mitzvah with his wife. When you're busy with your own preoccupation, with your own business and stuff like that, that's not considered busy with the mitzvah, and therefore you have to daven. And he brings Rashi. Rashi explains it just like that. The one who is asking assumes that the preoccupation exempts one, because one cannot focus properly. Therefore, if one ship is sinking and one is busy with his sorrow, he's not thinking properly, maybe he doesn't have to daven. So then he says splendor, because a mourner cannot express his splendor, the teferet, therefore he doesn't wear tefillin. A bridegroom, a hatan, is busy with the mitzvah. The pasuk is teaching us that he is not required to distract himself from the first mitzvah of getting married with the mitzvah of Shema. But preoccupation of a voluntary act, even though he's obligated in the morning practice of not wearing leather shoes, he's not obligated to cause himself suffering. And therefore, since he doesn't have to suffer when he's mourning, he needs to daven. Therefore, Shulchan Aruch says, Hakonet et habetula patur mikriyat Shema gimel yomim im lo asa ma'aseh. The man got married 3 days, he doesn't have to daven because he is busy with the mitzvah. He wasn't with her yet. He wasn't with her at all yet. He wasn't able to be with her. But this is only Bizman Rishonim in the earlier times. Aval Achshav, but nowadays, is a Shulchan Aruch saying, Shegam Sharbinei Adam Einam Mechavenim Karoi. Nobody's davening correctly. Nobody's having proper kavana. Gama Koneset Betula Kore. Therefore, even if you're marrying a Betula, you have to daven, say Kriyan Shema Kirra Gil, because nobody has kavana. And if you're not going to daven, you say, "Oh, you a fancy guy. You always have kavana, and today you don't." So therefore, nobody can say that. Therefore, everybody has to say, even the day of their marriage. Ain't on din din. You cannot get up to daven when you're busy from halacha. But let me talk halacha, from judgment or halacha. Because you don't want to be thinking about that. Rather from a clear halacha, right? And that's called simcha. When you learn the very clear halacha, you're going to have simcha. Because Torah brings you to simcha when you have a clear understanding. Therefore, a person shouldn't come to Shemona Esrei when his mind is busy. You have to come to Shemona Esrei with a clear mind. Shulchan Aruch he brings here. One who is traveling in a place where there are wild animals and bandits. He recites the abridged prayer. He cites the short prayer, Tzarche Amecha Merubim. And he does not say Lo Rishonot V'Lo Legimel Achanot. It doesn't say the Havinenu prayer. Havinenu prayer is the first three barachot, one big brach in the middle, and the last three barachot. He doesn't say that. If he's in the middle of the forest and there are animals and bandits, he's not going to be able to daven Shemona Esrei. We don't want him to stop and daven Shemona Esrei. We tell him to say a special tefillah, which is Hashem, please help us when we're in problems, and walk while you're doing it and get out of the forest. And he davens while he's on the road. He's able to stand. But once he gets to a city or he gets to a place where he can daven Shemona Esrei, he should stop and say Shemona Esrei. So we see, if a person is in a dangerous zone, he's not able to have kavanah, he doesn't have to daven. Mishnah Berurah brings the reason for this. Therefore, he doesn't have to pray tefillah havinenu because he's so busy with his mind, he can't settle it. And when he gets to the city, he can pray if the time of prayer didn't pass. Shulchan Aruch says, the person is busy with the community affairs. He doesn't stop to say Kriyat Shema. Rather, he continues working, and then if there's more time, then he should daven afterwards if it's still the time to daven. But if you're busy with a communal job, you don't have to daven. The Piskei Teshuvot, he wants to say as follows. It must be noted regarding this halacha, look in the bold part, that in our time, we almost never find that people work at something for an extended period without taking a break to eat, drink, rest, and the like. Therefore, people engaged in communal service may not skip Kriyat Shema and Tefillah either. He says they should abridge their davening, but they need to daven. They don't need to daven in a minyan, but they need to daven. Because he says today nobody goes without taking a break. Right? Today everybody works a little bit, taking a break.
Taking a break. You're in the middle of action.
Meaning?
You're in the middle of action. There's no break for you right now. You're going to be busy for 2 hours. You're saving, you're cramping, whatever. You take it to hospital. It takes all time.
So there we go.
Or you take another patient call.
So he says as follows. So he brings some, look at page 82. Look at the Isha Yisrael. He actually brings about the doctor and nurse. Rofa, achot, v'chedoyma, ha'oskim b'tfilah b'cholah. They're working with a sick person, and they can't leave the bedside. If they can leave the bedside, the patient's going to die, right? Then they are pater from Kriyat Shema and Tefillah at that time because they're taking care of the patient. But also they cannot, and it's forbidden for them to walk away and say, I have to daven now. They're taking care of the patient. They cannot go to daven. But if it's not critical or someone else can fill in for them, then they need to go daven. And if tefillah was able to be prayed before they started working with the patients, then they have to pray beforehand. But when it's pikuach nefesh, it's pikuach nefesh. They really have to assess the type of job that you're doing. If you can take a break, you have to take a break. But if you can't, if it's a job that you can't take a break, like a doctor or a nurse, they're doing something to save someone's life, they can't go away, then they would be exempt from tefillah. When I worked at Maimonides, we had a minyan of mincha in the 2 minyan of a mincha every day in the shul in the hospital. So most days I would try to go to the first minyan. If I didn't make the first minyan, I try to make it the second minyan. Most days I was successful to go. But some days it really happened that you were so busy with the patient, I wasn't able to get downstairs to the shul. I would daven on the floor. I would take a couple of minutes, tell someone to watch my patients, and I would daven one of the rooms that were empty, or find the lounge or something that I could daven in the break room or the locker room. And I would daven there for 2-3 minutes and come right back out because there was no time to go and daven. The Yalkut Joseph says, Shliach Mesodot Torah, Ha'oskim Begabat Kesef L'Mosod Detehem, the Gabei Tzedakah who are collecting for yeshivot, Yesh Arim Shepetur Mitfilat Rekir Shema, they don't have to daven and say Shema. Yesh Arim She'ein Lepotur Mitfilat Rekir Shema. The Davke Bedor Tarishonim She'oskim Matzibur L'Shem Shemaim, Ha'ir Petur Mitfilat Rekir Shema. I love his man is that today they're not really doing it L'Shem Shemaim. Today the fundraisers also get a percentage of the money, so they're not just doing it L'Oiskei Tzibur, they're also making money out of it. Right, they get a cut. And some say even though you want to hold a dar putter, they should not skip Shmona Esrei davening. If they're going to daven, Hashem will help them more. So you have to really assess the job that you're doing. It's not easy to say that I'm putter from davening. Okay, you can't putter yourself from davening because you're not going to have kavanah, because today most people don't have kavanah. So let's see. Look at page 84. Page 84. Give Rabbi Yosef Niaz page 84. Page 84. He brings a little chart over here about exemptions from tefillah. So if someone, look at the left side, preoccupied with danger, someone who is traveling in a dangerous area and cannot daven, he does not need to daven. He just says an abridged prayer that says, Hashem, please help me out of my situation. And later, when he gets out of there, if it's still time to daven and he has a clear mind, he davens Shmona Esrei at a later time. Preoccupation with a mitzvah, according to the Gemara, person who marries a betula is exempt from Kriyat Shema and Tefillah until he is with his wife. But the Shulchan Aruch says that today that this doesn't happen because people don't, because he doesn't have kavanah. He's too busy thinking about the mitzvah. He's not able to take Kriyat Shema, so therefore he doesn't pray Kriyat Shema. But today, Shulchan Aruch says today most people don't have kavanah anyway. Shulchan Aruch says today people don't have kavanah anyway. So therefore, even on his wedding night, he needs to daven. Someone engaged in communal service, Shulchan Aruch says it's part from Kriyat Shema. His Ketuvot says communal service does not create an exemption from tefillah, but only if it's impossible to delay it or find a replacement. Even though one should try to say as much as a tefillah. It's only if no one else can fill in for you. Yalkut Yosef says they may be exempt from tefillah. However, it's better that they daven, and that will help them anyway. Okay, so again, you'll see from all these cases, it's really hard to say a person be patur unless it's pekuach nefesh, or it's pekuach nefesh both ways. You're in a dangerous zone, so pekuach nefesh to stay there, or you're taking care of someone whose neshama might go away if you don't take care of them. Those are the real only times that you're patur from davening. Other than that, a person needs to make arrangements. Right? The Baal Tzedakah going around talking from the yeshiva, he's taking a lunch break, he's taking this break, he's eating at different times. So he has to take a break for davening also.
It has to after procedure.
Do you have to daven after a procedure?
No. Let's say during the procedure, leave it. No?
After the procedure?
Of course.
Depends. If you're in a clean environment and everything you can daven, yeah, you should daven, definitely.
Sure, why you're saying you might be shaking and scared or what?
If you can daven, if you're able to set up the room clean and you're clean and you can daven, yes, you should daven. 100%.
He's talking about when his mind is not probably.
So if your mind's not there, your mind's not there.
I cannot stand up.
After
We
the
can do sitting,
surgery.
right?
What?
I cannot stand up.
You can
sitting.
sit. You can even lay down if you can't really sit either. You can lay down and daven if you have no choice. Davening is davening. All those things are rabbanon. We try to do them. If we can't, we do. At least we daven. Okay, so we're on page 85. We're up to the machshava, the ideas of davening here, and we had a machloket way back in the beginning, the Rambam and the Ramban. The Rambam says it's always a deoraita. The Ramban says that prayer is the rabbanon, except if it's an etzara. So he brings here from Rav Soloveitchik as follows: the views of the Rambam and the Ramban can be reconciled. You can explain both of them together. Both regarded prayer as a meaningful only if it's derived from a sense of tzara, only if there's trouble. Then it's a real davening. When you daven, when you have a problem, you're really davening at that time, right? Look at yourselves. When you're davening with more kavanah, when you have a need, right? Stam, when no problem, it's not the same davening. They differ in the understanding of the word. However, how do you understand that tzara problem? Maimonides regards daily life as being a challenge, and as such, every day is considered an etzara. It's a tzara which exists b'kol yom. That's why it says min hametza karatiyah, and that is the way the Rambam looked at it. That's what Rambam says. That's what Rav Soloveitchik wants to look. Why the Rambam said every day is considered a deoraita tefillah, because every day a person has issues that he needs Hashem. Therefore, it's considered a deoraita prayer. The Ramban, when he said tzara, he said that the distress is a tzara de tzibur, when it's a public distress. Like right now, you have a public distress in Eretz Yisrael with all these terrorists coming in. This is considered a crisis. But the Rambam regarded all of life as a crisis. This is what Rav Soloveitchik wanted to learn. Look at the brownish box. According to Rav Soloveitchik, the Rambam holds that daily tefillah is also necessary as a response to an etzara, since everything in life is considered an etzara. Now, Rav Soloveitchik would not likely feel that a person should always be in despair or crying out at how difficult life is. We're not telling you to always complain, but he would say that a person must always pray on a daily basis, everything in life. So nothing in life can be taken for granted. And one should ask Hashem for everything one needs, big or small. He doesn't. So he says when Rav Soloveitchik is saying every day is a problem, he's not saying every day you should be complaining, but he's saying you shouldn't take what you have for granted. Therefore, you need to pray. Another important point that Rav Soloveitchik developed based on the Rambam was the idea of emotion within tefillah. Rav Soloveitchik writes that tefillah does not consist merely of reciting words. It's not just mumbling words. Tefillah is truly avodah shebalev, in which a person channels his emotions to connect to Hashem. You have to really use your feelings to daven to Hashem. The Rambam held that prayer is identical with service of the heart. It is avodah shebalev, an idea that is, according to the Rambam, all-encompassing and all-pervasive, and which represents the essence of man's relationship with Hashem. According to the Rambam, it's impossible to conceive of divine worship without including a prayer in it. What then is prayer? It's expression of the soul that yearns for Hashem through the medium of word. It's like we're wanting Hashem, and we're saying and we're showing our feelings of wanting Hashem with words, to which a human being gives expression to the storminess of his soul and spirit. Through words, you're showing what your soul feels like for Hashem. That's why when a person davens, when it's like a hazan who knows what he's saying, you can hear in his voice his heart, how it feels about his tefillah. When Rambam said that prayer is biblically ordained and identical with service of the heart, he thereby redeemed love, fear, and indeed our entire religious life from muteness. The Rambam took religious life, because a lot of people think religion is by route. You go, you do, you do, stay, you see, you do, and no feeling to it. He said, no, they were given a voice. The lover expresses his yearning, the tremble, his fear, and his joyful, his religious singing a song, all within the framework of prayer. The Rambam says, according to Soloveitchik, is that davening is a feeling. May we merit to successfully incorporate both ideas of Soloveitchik in our daily tefillah. So this is the Chilei Tefillah, the machshava behind from Rav Soloveitchik. All right, we'll end it over here. Be'ezrat Hashem. We finished already share 2 in the Tzurba. Next week we have about the proper position and kavanah in Shmona Esrei Be'ezrat Hashem. All right. All right, Shavua Tov. I'm going to shut the recording. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Hazar Baruch.